RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag AskDave, brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sun Rays. I'm your host, Deep Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, life, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, two things. One, we just ran a couple of big sales at SpecieNutrition.com, of course, in line with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then, of course, Mac Oil Tuesday, which was yesterday. But the next week, we are about a week away from boarding a plane and going to Dubai for the Dubai Muscle Show, where you are going to be interviewing some of the biggest names in bodybuilding on the main stage of the expo.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. You know, it's the end of the year. A lot of things don't happen. We really didn't go to the Nationals and cover that. So this is kind of like, I think this is way bigger because, you know, no one has really heard from a lot of the big names. Everyone's kind of been laying low. The Kai Greens, even Ronnie Coleman's after his surgery has been pretty quiet. These guys are all going to be out there. So we're going to get to interview these guys and find out what's going on. Obviously, the big interview should be Kai Green. Hopefully he's going to be there and he doesn't miss his airplane or something like that. Because everyone wants to know, what's going on, Kai? You know, you were at AMI headquarters. You know, are you thinking about doing the Olympia in 2019? These are the questions I want to ask him. And once again, whenever you're in another country, especially really far away from home, there's a kinship in bodybuilding where everyone kind of feels like, all right, you know what? I know these guys, I'm comfortable, and they open up a lot more. That's what I've always found, at least in my experience with traveling overseas. So it should be exciting, like I said, to be able to talk to some of these top names in the industry. And then, of course, all the fun stuff we're going to do there, Sid, that is kind of off, I guess you could say, we don't really know what's going to happen. You know, there's a lot of things I potentially have planned in Dubai to do, some of the places we can go visit and do on-the-site type interview type stuff. And hopefully we won't get arrested because, you know, in Dubai they do have some unusual laws that, you know, you can somehow violate if you're not careful. And, you know me, I'm very open. You know, maybe you're not allowed to interview people, I don't know, in malls and shopping malls, but we're going to be doing some fun stuff there, and hopefully people will appreciate all the coverage that we get, especially deep into the month of December. Now, the reason that it's good also, Sid, that we're going to Dubai at this point in time and getting all this footage that will probably last us throughout the month of December is because when I get back the week after, I'm getting my right shoulder replaced. And so I'm going to be out of commission for probably, knowing myself, a couple days. But I should be out of commission for a week or two. So at least you guys will have some good content to put up while I'm kind of, you know, healing up a little bit.
So, of course, in 1 week, we'll be in Dubai. Make sure you stay tuned to RxMuscle.com for all the interviews and all the footage from around town that we're going to be bringing you. Let's go to the questions. The first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, before we go to the questions, it's a fairly recent feature that you've added to the app for those who may not be aware, who are subscribers or looking to subscribe to the app, a video feature where you do answer questions in a public forum for all members. So similarly, what we do here on Ask Dave, it's essentially Ask Dave all week long on the app.
You know, it's a lot of people may not really understand or know what the app is, but what I formed it about a year or so ago, a year and a half ago, and with a partner of mine, and we decided that we needed a place where people could find all my information, all my videos and writings in one coherent place. Back in the day, we used to do member section of our websites, but right nowadays, websites are just basically stores. And that, you know, my personal website is basically a store for all the products that I endorse and my services and stuff like that. So this app is great because you get it on your phone, you get notifications every time something new is put up. And what we decided that was probably one of the most, you know, requested things that people wanted from me was me to answer their questions. But not everyone knows what questions they necessarily want answered. So the great thing is if you're an app member, not only do you get your own questions answered, but you get to see all the other questions that are asked. So any member who asks a question, we post it, it's answered by me, and then it's posted so that everyone can see it. And then the best questions that are asked, I save and I do a question answer video that's exclusive to the app. So no one else gets to see that unless you're an app member. So they say, membership has its privileges. So this is something that people really want. They want information. They want to be able to ask me specific questions about themselves, about what they're doing, and this is a great way for people to get answers. And not everyone can afford coaching, $800 for contest prep or, $1,500 for the year. So this is something that for $29 a month, that it gives you a tremendous value. And I see we have a lot of members on the app, and we're always taking requests of how to improve it, and we just launched the new version of it. So finally, people have been asking me. Finally, yes, the Apple people can go to the App Store and now download the Apple version. The Android version's been up, and all is good in the world.
Let's go to the questions. The first question, Dave, I'm seeing some of the clinics prescribe other AAS for TRT outside of the normal testosterone. Your thoughts?
Yeah, some of the clinics will prescribe a little dacadrabelin, especially if you have joint. Like I know TitanMedicalCenter.com, which is where I really send people because I really believe that they have the best services that they offer, and they're the most accessible. And it's something that you can do online. You don't have to go see them in Tampa. You can do, Skype consults with the doctors. They will prescribe like something like DECA if you have existing joint issues. So if you go to your orthopedic surgeon and you have documented joint issues and you're in pain or you have a lot of inflammation in there, they can prescribe DECA. That's something that they can do in addition to the testosterone and the HCG and the Arimidex that they give you on their hormone replacement protocols. And I like that. I like the fact that if you have medical conditions, you don't have to feel like a criminal anymore to get solutions that we know work. We know that if you're in pain and you have a joint pain or tendon inflammation, that DECA works. And it's great to be able to get a legal version of it. You don't have to take an awful lot of it. You know why? Because it's real and it's dosed properly. It comes from a U.S. pharmacy. And these are benefits of going to a real clinic and getting blood work done and talking to a real doctor. And I like that. I wish that was available when I was younger, especially in today's marketplace, where the black market doesn't sell pharmaceuticals anymore. It sells underground stuff that's made in people's houses. Whereas, back in the 90s and early 2000s, it was basically pharmacy stuff from the European pharmacies or Middle Eastern pharmacies that trickled its way into the US. That doesn't exist anymore. Most of the stuff here in the US is underground made. And it's from powders that are gotten from China that we don't know what's actually in them. Luckily, on DavePalumbo.com, we sell these roid test kits that enable you to test your products, but you can't tell the strength of them. You can only tell if the right drug is in there. Now, good news that's coming probably within the next couple weeks is that I will exclusively have they made a new test has been created for growth hormone. Finally, we've been waiting for 2 years for this. And you'll be able to test your growth hormone to see if it's actually GH or one of the peptides that are out there. You'll be able to differentiate, and you'll know if what you got is real. And that's priceless, those kits, because so many people are wasting so much money on GH, the generic GHs, and they don't know what they're taking, if it's real or not. So this is going to be another great thing to add to the list of ways that you can tell if what you're using is real. But getting back to the original question, if you want to get real stuff and you want to get it, by prescription, you got to go to a clinic, and you got to go to a clinic that knows bodybuilders, and TitanMedicalCenter.com does. And if you ever go over to their website and you give them a call and you mention Dave Palumbo and RxMuscle, they will give you a nice big discount. I promise you that.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, what do you think about carb cycling or caloric cycling in your diets over the week, creating a deficit but having high, medium, and low days?
Yeah, I always think that mixing things up is fine. I'm a creature of habit, so I like to eat a certain way. So I create diet plans for myself or for my clients, and as long as they're gaining on a regular basis and they're making progress, I don't change anything. If progress slows and I have to increase their food a little bit, then I do that. If I'm dieting someone and they're not losing weight and I'm changing things around and nothing's working, I start messing with their diet. I start adding certain days with a lot of food, and then other days where I'll take away food. And people get nervous because they're like, I'm not losing weight, you're gonna give me more food? So sometimes you have to do those things. But with other people, their bodies work almost like little machines. You give them a certain amount of food and their body responds. So everyone's different. So I wouldn't necessarily be messing around with different caloric loads on different days with just everyone, because then it's hard to understand and know what's working and what's not. If you can get someone on a regimen that they're responding very, very consistently, that's a better way to go. Because then if you need to tweak something, you just take a little here out or you add a little here, and that will solve the problem. When you're constantly fluctuating daily, different meal choices because things are just not working with the person properly, that could be an issue.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. If you're not following us, our Instagram handle is official_RxMuscle. Of course, next week when we are in Dubai, we're going to have a full load of stories and posts all on RxMuscle, official_RxMuscle. Let's go to eWadi123. Dave, I liked your video about trend cough, which is available right now at RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. I'm just not finishing up a trend cycle, or I just now finishing up a trend cycle, but whenever I get the cough, I've noticed my stomach also starts hurting really bad after the cough is gone, to where it's hard to move around sometime. Any idea what causes that?
Well, it depends on how hard you're coughing. Sometimes you cough so much you actually strain abdominal muscles. I've done that myself. And that's more likely than not what's happening. So it's possible. Some people, when they take Trenbolone, it really messes with their digestive system. Now, if the person would have said, I was getting heartburn, or if I felt like I got some diarrhea, or that would be consistent with the side effects of Trenbolone in general on the central nervous system. But if you're feeling like pain in your abdominal area, that could just be, once again, because you're coughing so hard. Because trend cough is basically like a dry, unproductive cough that it comes from deep in your abdomen almost. It's like you just can't get, the problem is that your body doesn't know what it's coughing out, and you're not really coughing anything out. Like I said, I believe it to be, the preservative or the chemicals in the Trenbolone that are being released through the lungs. And as you're doing that, it's inhibiting your body from getting in, absorbing the oxygen it needs from the lungs, and so you're kind of like almost gagging or being suffocated in a sense. You're coughing too hard because your body thinks something's in there when it really isn't. And so sometimes people strain muscles when they do that. When I was 300 pounds, this is a true story. When I was 300 pounds and I would sneeze, I would have to brace myself almost because I would sneeze so hard with such, I guess my muscles would be so, explosive that I would actually feel like I was gonna rip a pec muscle or tear an intercostal muscle. So I would have to brace myself for the sneeze. And if I didn't, I would actually pull muscles. So when you're that big and you have a lot of musculature in your body, okay, just the act of coughing is powerful enough to pull small muscle groups. So you gotta be very careful.
Let's go to MW Fitness. Dave loved the show. Is there a specific time you suggest to wait to train from when you have your pre-workout meal to ensure you're effectively consuming intra-workout supplements such as cyclic dextrin, creatine, making sure you fully absorb and reap the benefits of intra-workout absorption?
Well, intra-workout absorption implies that you're having it while you're training. So there's no amount of time you need to wait. Now, pre-workout meals, if you're having a shake, you could do it. You can have a shake pre-workout. Like I recommend people use Isolyze and Carbolyze with a tablespoon of macadamia oil, 20 minutes before you train. Those things get absorbed really quickly. If you're going to have a meal pre-workout, you probably want to have it at least an hour before to give it ample time to start being absorbed. It's funny because I've done intra-workout type of shakes, not really knowing they're intra-workout. Back in when I was training, we would drink like a Gatorade while we were training, and sometimes just the liquid and the electrolytes made me feel a little better. Maybe if I was sweating a lot, but then I would when I would train for a competition, I would just drink water. I wouldn't have any carbs intra-workout. And what I noticed? Nothing changed. I wasn't any stronger. I didn't do any more reps when I was off season than when I did pre-contest. Matter of fact, I might have been stronger, pre-contest in the initial stages because I was less bloated. So I think it's very psychological, and I think people like to drink things they think in other words, they think that they're growing better if they're putting amino acids and they're putting carbs into their body while they're training. But I think it's more of a psychological thing. Once again, because I never noticed a difference in my performance. I might have felt better when I was drinking things because it tastes good and you don't feel that hunger pain in your stomach. But when I would feel that hunger pain in my stomach and I would train, even though I hated that feeling and I couldn't wait till the workout was over so I could eat a meal, it didn't affect performance. So the bottom line is, for bodybuilding purposes, when we train, you only train an hour in the gym anyway. I don't think performance is affected by what we do intra-workout. I think it's more important to have a good meal before you go to the gym. Make sure you don't go to the gym on an empty stomach, especially if you're working out training early in the morning. And then make sure, that you eat after. And when you're dieting, it doesn't really matter if you have a shake or a meal after whatever the next food serving is. And it's all, that's gonna, whether you recover 5 minutes, longer or quicker, it doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, as long as your consumption of protein, fat, and carbs throughout the day is what your body requires, you're not gonna hamper your performance or improve it very much by having something intra-workout.
Let's go to Ash Smith 350. How much water a day should you be drinking when trying to bulk? Can you give examples? Example, when 200 pounds, 250 pounds, 300 pounds, and on-off orals. So I guess in those scenarios.
Yeah. I don't think that, you have to be a water Nazi. I call it water Nazi because people who are so obsessed with the gallon jugs that they carry around with them all the time. I think it's good to be hydrated. I think if you're dehydrated, and that means, when I say dehydrated, I mean you're not eating enough salt or drinking enough water. That's going to definitely decrease exercise performance. We know that. And like a 10% dehydration can affect performance up to 30%. So you definitely don't want to be dehydrated, but you also don't need to overdrink, because overdrinking waters down your electrolytes as well, and sometimes can lead to cramping. So I think that there's a fine line. Also, I've talked to kidney doctors about this. People who overdrink, put a tremendous strain on their kidneys to constantly be filtering. So that's for the bodybuilder, who eats a tremendous amount of protein. All this overdrinking puts a big burden on the kidneys. So don't overdo things. I always say drink when you're thirsty. Try to hydrate. After, what I would do is, back in the days, I would eat my meal. Sometimes I would sip a little drink while I was eating it, but I really didn't drink a lot while I ate my meal. After my meal was over, I would drink at least 8 ounces, like maybe within 15, 20 minutes after that. Usually taking my vitamins, with that. Usually before a meal, a lot of times also, this is a good trick to do before, if you're dieting. Before you have a meal, drink 8 ounces of water, okay? Then eat eat whatever. You have 6 pre-contest meals, have a meal. I guarantee you'll be fuller and you'll want to eat less if you drink 8 ounces of water before you eat. Drink it, wait about 10 minutes, have your meal. You'll be shocked. You won't eat as much. Likewise, afterwards, after you eat your meal, wait about 15, 20 minutes and then have your vitamins and water or whatever it is that you're going to do. It gives your digestive enzymes also a chance to really, work on the food. If you pour too much water down your throat while you're eating food, theoretically you can water down the digestive enzymes a little bit. I don't really believe that that's the case, but it's not a bad idea to kind of limit how much fluid you drink during the meal. Drink your fluids between meals. That's more important. That's the times of day that you really want to drink the alkalinized, waters that you can get your hands on, whether you're using it from a water filter you're buying it in the store. Excuse me, ooh, that was a good burp. That was a Howard Stern-worthy burp. Or what you can also do is buy a water pitcher that alkalinizes the water. I sell these filters called Santa Via alkalinized water pitchers. They're like Brita filters. You just pour water in them, they go through the little spout, and it alkalinizes and filters the water. So you get clean, alkalinized water. As long as it sits in that pitcher and you pour it out, you're going to have alkalinized water really cheap. It's $45. I mean, each filter lasts 90 days. You just pop a new filter in. The water pitcher lasts forever as long as you clean it out. And you got unlimited amounts of alkalinized water, and you can drink that, once again, between meals. And that's going to really help with especially for people who are on super high protein diets. It's going to neutralize acidity, and you're going to feel and recover better. I promise you that. You can make fun of, there's people out there that like to make fun of alkalinized water, but I guarantee you, until you start drinking it on a regular basis, you have no right to put it down. You'll see, you will feel different, I promise you.
Let's go to My Arsenal or Arcanal. I see a lot of people squatting down with the bands wrapped around their ankles and walking sideways. Wouldn't it seem like activating the hips in 2 different motions, in parentheses, squat position while flexing sideways, at the same time would be harmful, correct?
I'm trying to visualize what they're saying. I know that, look, I've done physical therapy after a quad tear, and I know we put the bands around our ankles and you kind of sidestep, and that's just to kind of strengthen the abductors and adductors up. But I kind of, the way I understand it, they were saying they're doing this while squatting. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that's what he's saying. Squatting down and then walking sideways.
Maybe they're combining the 2 motions. I don't know.
So I guess what you're talking about as far as walking sideways, I guess in a more squatted down position doing the same thing?
Oh, I don't know. It sounds like a rehab exercise. You're not going to build mass doing that. I mean, it's good for maybe working some of the assister muscles and for, strengthening up some of those, weird muscles that can kind of be weak sometimes. But that's not a mass builder if that's what they're asking. I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question or not. Sometimes I can't answer every question. I didn't really understand it that well.
We are seeing, I guess, as a corollary to that, we are seeing a lot more, band movements, band workouts, incorporating that with weight training. I don't know if you've ever addressed that before. Maybe you want to do it in a rant, or if you want to just give a primer right now.
Sid, the truth is that everyone's always trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to training, and everyone's trying to come up with their own training systems. And when it comes to power sports, explosive type movements, stuff like box training, box squats, and benching to a bar in your chest. A box on your chest, or using bands and chains. That's really, really productive because you want to develop explosiveness. It doesn't matter how you look; it's how you function. That's what powerlifting is about, and strength sports. Okay, bodybuilding is about muscle development. If you want to build muscle, you got to lift weight, okay? And you got to lift it under controlled, you have to control the weight, and you have to be able to squeeze the weight, and you got to be able to use full range of motion. That's how you build and develop, muscles, okay? So there's no way to reinvent that. I mean, you can create all the machines you want. We all know, and everyone out there who's ever put on a lot of size in their lifetime knows that free weights build the best muscle, because when you use free weights, you're forced to not only push the weight, okay, and move it, but you're forced to balance the weight, and that develops all those assistant muscles that are involved. When you bench press a bar versus a machine, you have to balance that bar from side to side. The development you get from that is so much more extreme and so much more visually potent that you can't replace that with a machine. Now, once you have a lot of muscle, you can use machines to maintain the muscle, okay, that you have. But to get it first, you can do bands, you can do whatever you want, all the kooky, crazy occlusion training, you can do whatever you want. You're not going to get the development you're going to get from getting under a freaking piece of raw iron and moving it, okay? And that's the bottom line. There's no way to make up for that, and there's no special movement that someone else knows that we don't know already. Back in Arnold's day, they knew exactly what they had to do. They went in the gym, all they had was free weights. They rowed, they pressed, they squatted, and that's what built the great muscle that they had.
Let's go to Gray Z54. Would you count calories from coconut oil or any other fat to cook with when working out total calories for the day?
If you're using large amounts of them, yeah. When I tell people to make eggs using and grease the pan with macadamia nut oil, I'm talking about like a tiny little dollop of the stuff in the pan, and I wipe it around. It doesn't even leave the pan. It's just lubricating the pan so the eggs don't stick to it. I'm not pouring in mac oil and frying it in there like it's butter or something like that. So if you're doing that, where you're putting in large amounts of these oil, whether it be coconut oil or macadamia nut oil, into the pan, then you definitely have to figure that in. And I don't even know how to figure it in, because you don't know how much the food is absorbing of that or it's coating the food. So my suggestion is eggs are, an interesting thing, because you don't want them to stick to the pan, because you lose the egg then. Half the egg is on the pan. So I grease the pan with it just so that the egg doesn't stick. That's not absorbing any significant amounts of fat in that sense. However, if I was cooking chicken and fish and red meat, okay, I wouldn't cook them with oil, because now you have to put significant amounts down. Even if you spray Pam on there, you're getting more than you think on there. I poach all my foods. I've said this before. I put them in a pan with water and soy sauce, or water and other spices that I enjoy, and I cook them in there. And by the time the food is done, all the liquid has evaporated from the pan, and the food has absorbed the spices, okay? And that gives the stuff a nice, good taste. The food is moist because it was basically poached in water, okay? And the cleanup is really easy, and you're not adding any extra fats that you can't account for. You only have what's in the food. And if you want to add a tablespoon of mac oil after that, okay, or because that's what the diet calls for, a tablespoon and a half, whatever your coach is recommending, you put it on afterwards. There's no reason to add the extra food, extra stuff there. Now, if I'm in the off season and I want to make, I've done videos on this. I want to do keto cutlets, as I used to call them, where I took chicken and I dipped them in some egg and I put some almond flour on the outside, and I wanted to fry them in a pan with macadamia nut oil. Who cares how much oil the chicken absorbs? Because I'm not worried about portion size at that point, or how many calories or how many grams of fat are in there. But in a situation where you're trying to monitor your amount of macros in your food, it would be silly to start spraying pans with tons of lubricant. It screws up your macro count, and a lot of times it screws the diet up. And I've worked with a lot of clients where I've had to ask them these questions. Hey, how do you cook your food? Oh, I put this, I put that oil, I use macadamia oil like you told me. And I'm like, well, how much? Well, I don't know, I just put it in the pan. Well, you might have just added an extra 60 grams of fat to your daily intake, which is 600 calories. That could definitely screw your diet up, especially if you're a woman. So you got to watch out for the hidden calories in foods.
Soulless Prospect, I want you to clarify one thing. He claims that back in your day, you didn't take any days off. First of all, clarify if that's fact. What would you recommend, I guess, for upcoming generations as it relates to rest days?
Not true. Maybe in the first year I trained, I was overtrained to death, but because I didn't know any better. But no, I used to take 2 days a week off where I did no weights. And if I wasn't contest dieting, that was it. Those 2 days I did nothing. I never did cardio in the off season ever because it would inhibit. My metabolism was too fast to do that, and it would inhibit my gains. I couldn't eat enough food as it was. Those 2 days that I would take off, and believe me, I'm a mental case. I used to like to train. I would have gone to the gym every day gladly. But I knew that if I took those 2 days off, that I would grow better. And I saw it. When I took those days off and I started making myself ensure that I took days off, I definitely recovered on those days. And when I got back to the gym after a day off, I wanted to train again. I had the urgency to get to the gym, and I felt good. The reason I felt good was because I was not overtraining. It took a while for me to find that sweet spot. Even when I was taking 2 days a week off from the gym, I was still doing too many sets for a long time until really Dorian came out and started talking about how he cut back the volume of his training. And I'm going to do a rant on this, possibly in the next week, about what high intensity training is, because the essence of it is stimulating the muscle enough to grow. Anything more than that, and you're overtraining. And you know what? It takes different people, different amounts of sets to maximally stimulate their body. But what you'll find is the more muscle you have and the better mind-muscle connection that you make with the weights, okay, with the muscles, the better, I guess you could say, the easier it's going to become to maximally stimulate that muscle. So at the peak of my career, at the peak of my size, I was able to do much less sets, maybe 4 to 6 sets, and I was able to leave the gym and get just as much benefit out of it as I did maybe 5 years earlier, where I'd have to do 15 sets to get the same out of it because I couldn't feel the muscle as much. I couldn't put as much, intensity and ferocity into the workout because I just couldn't. I didn't have that connection built, and that takes years and years of training sometimes to do it. So high intensity training is great only if you can feel the muscle. If you can't feel what you're doing, sometimes you need to do more repetition just to kind of build those nerve pathways.
Again, you're watching AskDave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sunrays. We wanted to give a special shout out, Dave, to a store in Scottsdale, Arizona, Firebird Nutrition, now carrying the full line of Species Nutrition. I know you're very excited about this. It's a hardcore store, one of the top ones in that sector of Arizona, and they recently started carrying the Species Nutrition line of nutrition.
I love to see the wall of green in a store. So when I get pictures, from store owners and they're like, "Look, Dave, here's my display," I'm like, I like it. Because you know why? Because nothing sticks out look, you might use different brands of supplements, but nothing sticks out like a wall of green from Species Nutrition, because we got those really bright, vibrant, shrink wrapped, bottles and jugs. And when it's covering an entire wall, when you walk into a store, that's all you see. And to me, that really says, come over here and look at me. And that's really what we want. Because, there's an education curve with Species. I want people to be asking questions. I don't want to get lost and blend into the background. I guess when you start a supplement line, you have to try to figure out what your color scheme is. Usually, most people think bodybuilders are into black, black. Let's do black with some white writing or silver writing. That's typical. Some companies that maybe want to see more mainstream will use white because it looks clean. I thought that, and it's funny because I did this I started Species before this whole clean earth movement started and everything like that, and where green became like a very, environmentally friendly type color. I did it before that. I just thought green was like, alienish, that alien green color, and it just looks right in your face. But afterwards it kind of had a different connotation for me because it really kind of said, what, this is primal, it's green. We come from an earth that's covered in green, from algae and trees and grass, and that's just, that's the essence of who we are. So I love to see, stores once again that are carrying the full line of products and that they display them very, visually like that. And obviously when people come into stores, it makes an impact.
So again, if you're not following them, follow them on Instagram, Firebird Nutrition, and if you're in the Scottsdale area, go check them out. Again, Firebird Nutrition. A couple of more questions. One from Human Sepantamer. I love this show more than Dave talks about fiber lies. Why do all these gurus suggest eating beef before a show while its digestion takes a long time and makes you bloated?
What, I didn't hear what they said. What should they do before a show?
Eating beef before a show.
Oh, beef. Well, I like beef too. I think it gives you a fuller look. It's probably from the high arachidonic acid, content of the food, obviously the higher creatine content of the food, and the higher fat content. See, a lot of guys who don't specifically add fats into their pre-contest diets find that they can't stay full unless they eat red meat. And the reason they're realizing that is because they're indirectly, what's happening is they're getting their fat from the red meat, because red meat has intrinsically a lot more fat than chicken and fish does. So if you do find that you have a tough time digesting red meat, which a lot of guys do, and what they find, it just kind of lays in their stomach and they get bloated in the stomach, then all you got to do is do what I've been saying for years and years and years. Eat the lean sources of protein, but add extra fat. Make sure you get enough fat in your diet. Use nuts and all natural butters, like nut butters, like almond butter and peanut butter. Use your whole eggs. Use macadamia nut oil. Use some avocados. Take in, fish oil supplements. These will give you the same effect, okay, without having to eat, high amounts of red meat that, like I said, might not sit well in some people's stomachs. It's one thing to eat red meat once a day. I know guys that need to eat it 3-4 times a day to stay full enough. And that's just because they're not getting enough fats in their diet. They're indirectly getting their fats, and that's a very inefficient way to achieve the goal you're trying to get. Not to mention that not all fat is created equal. You don't want all red meat fat. You want different sources of fat because our bodies need saturated fat, our bodies need polyunsaturated fat, our bodies need monounsaturated fat. So you got to get a little of everything. So it's better to kind of design your program with that in mind rather than just pound red meat all day.
Last question is from Blackhawk3646. Dave, your thoughts on Arnold's new supplement line teamed up with LeBron James, Cindy Crawford, and Lindsey Vonn?
Yeah, I think it's a good move on Arnold's part. I'll tell you why. Because he was involved with that. I don't even know what his involvement really was with Muscle Farm years ago. I think he was just sponsored by them. I don't even know. Or he had the Arnold line. That's not Arnold's thing. Arnold was a hardcore bodybuilder, but his attraction is mainstream, okay? There's too many people in the hardcore bodybuilder niche right now for Arnold to compete with, because that's not, like I said, that's not his foray right now. He's an action film movie star. Even though he came from bodybuilding, he's still really more mainstream. I mean, he was the president of he was the head of the President's Council on Physical Fitness back in the day. So I always said, if Arnold's going to come out with a line, it should be more mainstream because he can hit mainstream America. And obviously, LeBron James in basketball is hugely mainstream. So I think the two of them coming out with a line together, and if you look at what they're doing, is it's basically like you go to the website, you kind of put in what your sports are, what you do, and what your goals are, and it spits out a formula like, all right, this is going to be the product you're going to buy, and it's going to fit your needs. That's more of a mainstream. You're not going to get anything super hardcore about that, but it's going to allow the average person who doesn't know anything about protein or anything about carbs or anything like that to go buy supplements and not feel intimidated by it. Species Nutrition is a great line of products. It really can be used by anyone, including kids. okay? But it's very hardcore in the sense that, it requires an educational curve. And if you don't go and watch my videos and you don't go and follow what's going on, it might be something that people would just overlook in a store. Whereas Arnold kind of has mainstream appeal, and he made it easy for the average person to go buy a supplement. And once again, if I try to do that with my line, I wouldn't sell as much product, because my group of people that buy from me are the hardcore, not necessarily bodybuilders, but the hardcore athletes who compete and who really want exceptional performance in their workouts. So everyone's got to find their own niche and capitalize on it. And I think teaming up with LeBron James and Lindsey Vonn and some of these other Cindy Crawford, these mainstream people, will help Arnold push it to the masses, where he wouldn't even be competing with the bodybuilding community. No professional bodybuilder is going to go buy Arnold's line. They know that that's not it's not for them. But the average soccer mom might go and buy some of the stuff for her husband, maybe her kids. You never know. So I think it's a great idea. I think that Arnold once again has reinvented the wheel, and I think it's going to succeed. I really do.
That is going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sunrays. Reminder: next week, Dave and I will be in Dubai covering the Dubai Muscle Pro Show. So keep it locked to RxMuscle.com for all the interviews, all the features around town, and every other thing that we have planned for you next week in Dubai. For our producer, Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next week.